everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm 𝗖𝗽 Biniaz, co-CEO of CPI. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, co-CEO of CPI, 𝗖𝗽 Benesocky. Welcome, 𝗖𝗽.
Thank you. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Today, we're excited to have Dan Hanford with us. I'm going to do a quick intro just so you guys know exactly who the special guest is. Dan and his wife, 𝗖𝗽, along with their 4 children, 3 girls, and 1 boy, and a standard poodle, reside and work in Columbia, South Carolina. He is one of the managing partners with PassiveInvesting.com, which is a national passive apartment investment firm based in the Carolinas. He has led apartment syndication company to acquire 2,600 plus units with a portfolio valued over $250 million in just 24 months.
Yeah, that's a superstar when it comes in the world of apartment syndication.
Incredible.
And we'll get into that in a moment.
Really something cool. Prior to getting started in real estate, Dan had an extensive background in starting multiple 7-figure businesses from scratch, including a large group of non-surgical orthopedic medical clinics located in South Carolina. So Dan is also the founder of the Multifamily Investor Nation, where he provides free multifamily education.
And we're going to get into that as well.
To a nationwide group over 26,000 members. The Multifamily Investor Nation has 50 plus meetup groups across the country.
And we started the first one in Canada.
Which we're really excited about that. And they meet on the first Monday of every month. So this is really cool too. He also has one of the most popular apartment investing podcasts on iTunes called the Multifamily Investor Nation, where he only interviews active multifamily investors that have closed the deal in the last 12 months. So if you don't mind, August, you can post this, www.mfinpodcast.com. We're going to post that in the comments section here. So you guys have to check that out.
Absolutely. I'll put it right here.
Awesome.
So we put it into the chat to everyone. So
there
please
we go.
Make sure you get on MFIN and check that podcast out. Wonderful. Yeah. So if you have any questions or comments, please put it in the Q&A box and we'll spend some time at the end of the show to ask Dan for those questions. And
let's welcome our guest. Welcome, Dan Hanford.
Welcome, Dan.
Well, I must say, 𝗖𝗽, that it was probably the best introduction I've ever had. So I'm gonna probably have to call you up and have you do some of my voiceover work. That was amazing. I love it.
Anytime.
No, absolutely.
Thank you both for having me on. Looking forward to sharing with your audience here.
No, for sure. We really appreciate it. So people that follow us and watch our show, you know that we bring on expert guests to speak about the apartment investing or real estate investing in general. Dan is somewhat of a special guest, and the reason for that being is he was the person who introduced us to this concept of apartment syndication and got us so excited to be involved. And he did this through his thought leadership platform that we'll get into in a minute. But it was an incredible platform where I initially kind of was wondering, what is this? And I learned a lot about it. And
I'll never forget, August was literally sitting in his office and he was all excited and like consumed with this apartment syndication. And I remember walking by his office one day and I'm like, what you learning there? And he's like, oh, apartment syndication, this, that, this, these are the returns, all this stuff. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And ever since then, I've been like, I think I know more than you now.
Pretty much, you know, I think
I know more than him now.
You can definitely speak it better than I can, that's for sure. Please turn off your video, or Steven, my friend, stop video.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely the case.
So Dan, I wanted to, maybe we can start off by, why don't you quickly tell us a bit about yourself and your background? And you were an accomplished businessman before starting in syndication. What was it about this business that excited you enough to dedicate a good portion of your life?
Yeah, well, let me first start off with a disclaimer. So you can see I'm actually working from my house right now, and my wife is actually away, and with my 2 older children. I have my 2 younger children, our 4-year-old, our 2-year-old here. So if you see one of them running in the back, I might have to step away for just a moment there, but they're happy watching Paw Patrol while I'm doing this right now, so shouldn't be a problem. But I'll back up just a little bit, kind of tell a little bit about my story so that your listeners and your audience can have a little bit of context about how I got to getting to the point of actually doing apartment syndication. So,
but then just to interrupt you quickly, your mic sounds a bit muffled. Initially, when we started, it sounded more crisp. Now it seems a bit muffled.
let me do this. There's actually a setting on here that can allow me to change the dynamic leveling.
He knows more than us. When it
For
comes to
sure.
How about that? Is that better?
That's better. That's
Yeah.
better. Initially, when we started, it was very clear, but now it's better than the second part. But
All right, good. I'll turn it up just a little bit more. Maybe that'll be a little bit better. How's that? Is that even better?
yeah, that's even better.
All right, good. So I'll take you back to kind of, before and how everything kind of got started. So I'm a chiropractor by trade, and a lot of people don't know that, but I'm actually a licensed chiropractor here in the state of South Carolina. And when I was in chiropractic college is when I really started my very first successful business. And that very first successful business was a company called, and it still is a company called 𝗖𝗣𝗜 And we sell all types of anatomy models like skeletons and skulls and brains and hearts and all kinds of plastic models that colleges, doctor's offices, and universities across the country actually use to train on and to learn the anatomy of the human body. I started that in chiropractic college because all the students in the school needed to be able to have a spine model, like a model of the human spine, for us to learn the anatomy and the structures of the spine. And so I heard a lot of the students complaining because the bookstore was selling one for $189.95. And so I was like, well, let me go and check and see what the manufacturer is on this thing. Maybe I can find it a little bit cheaper. So I went down to the bookstore, figured out who the manufacturer was, and I actually found a distributor of the product, of the actual model, and kind of paused for a second. Fast forward to today, they're actually one of our largest competitors, which is kind of cool. But I called them up and I said, if I can get an order of 20 of these spine models put together, how much could you give it to me for? And they said, we'll sell it to you for $65. And so I was like, okay, I'll upcharge by about $5. So I didn't want to charge 70. So I did the whole sales trick and said $69.95, right? So I went and got in front of each one of the student body classes and basically, sold it from the stage, if you will. And that first week, I sold 80 of those spines with money cash up front because I didn't want to be having a bunch of IOUs from college students, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I had them, paying with either cash, check, or a PayPal. And I sold 80 of them that first week. So then I was like, I wonder if I can cut out the middleman, the distributor, and go straight to the manufacturer. And so now that I had all these orders, I went to the manufacturer and said, hey, I got this large order, 80 spines. What can I become a dealer, right? And if I can, what kind of discount could I get? And so I talked to the lady over there at the manufacturer, and she said, how many times a year do you think you can do this? And I said, well, probably at least 3 or 4 times a year. And she said, well, I tell you what, I'll set you up on our highest top tier discount, and you'll be able to get that spine model for $42.48. And I will never forget that number, right? So it was $42.48 because my profit went from just a couple $100 to now, a nice over $1,000 profit, right? And so that was one of those. That was the very first item that I sold. And 2 weeks later, sold another 40 items. And then took some of my background in web design and web hosting, started to build out the website, 𝗖𝗣𝗜. It's still today, when we first started by selling 10, 20, 30, 40,000 a month. And now even up to today, it's 13, 14 years later, we're selling 7 figures every single year off that website. I have a team that runs that. And that business was one that I started in chiropractic school. I ran throughout the chiropractic college. And I would actually make sure I got to school really early in the morning so I could park really close to the building, because in between classes, instead of going and fellowshipping in the hallways and things like that, I would park really close to the building. And I had an SUV at the time, and I put a laptop stand in it. So I'd go in between classes, and I'd have my laptop standing there, and I'd be plugging away, responding to emails, doing customer service, and taking phone calls, and sitting out tracking, and really kind of running the business from the laptop there. And I even remember my wife and I got married after I was in chiropractic college for a year. And when we first got married, I remember, we were open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, so to cover both the East Coast and the West Coast during the entire day. And I remember in the middle of dinner, sometimes getting phone calls from customers, and I would get at the dinner table, and it was just my wife and I at the time. We didn't have any kids, and I would actually take a phone call in the living room. And it would be somebody that's like calling to get a discount on a product or whatever. And I would, well, hold on just a minute. Let me check with the manager and I'll get back with you. And I'd put him on hold. Hey, here, should I give this person a discount? And so it was a great time, especially as we reflect, kind of see where we were and where we come from there. But right out of chiropractic college is when I first started my very first chiropractic clinic. and I was working for myself, and it was me seeing all the patients. And I realized early on that I was the only one seeing these patients. And so I was really capping my income because I could only see so many patients an hour. And if I wanted to go on vacation to spend some time with my wife and our newborn baby at the time, then I would have to pay my staff still and also pay for the overhead, but take a week off. So I was actually paying to go on vacation, right? Plus the cost of actually going on vacation. So it was kind of getting hit both ways. So I decided at that point, start to hire on some other associate chiropractors to work for me. And then a couple of years later, started to hire on some medical team. So I had a medical doctor and some nurse practitioners that were working for us. And then about probably 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to completely remove the chiropractic from our clinics so we can really focus on the medical component of what we do, because we can reach more people with chiropractic, with the types of procedures that we're doing by allowing chiropractors to refer to us. Because we were doing chiropractic in the office, outside chiropractors did not want to refer to us. And so we cut that out. Then we scaled from 1 clinic to 4 clinics. And fast forward, until about 3 or 4 years ago, we decided that we really needed to do some investing inside of real estate because we were paying a lot of money in taxes. In the United States, we pay quarterly taxes when you get to a certain level instead of once a year taxes. And so every quarter we're paying in to Uncle Sam our 6-figure checks, right? Because we were cash flowing very nicely in those clinics. Well, we decided that we got to do something to reduce that taxable liability. So I promoted my COO at the time to the CEO. He's been running the clinics ever since. And I have been able to step out and really focus on this group, which is our passiveinvesting.com group, and allowing us to be able to expand our brand with the Multifamily Investor Nation and passiveinvesting.com. And so the main reason and impetus for me getting into the space was really from a tax advantage standpoint. I wanted to reduce my taxable liability and also have a way to be able to grow my wealth as well as our wealth from our investors at the same time.
Wonderful, great. Dan, your mic is still very echoey. Is it loose somewhere? Is it something? I don't think it's the. Maybe we'll. I don't think it's the settings. It's.
Oh, I know what it is. Wrong mic. I've chosen the wrong.
Yes.
Now probably perfect.
Perfect, Dan. Perfect.
Perfect.
And I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of that, but that portion is going to be a bit echoey, but that's fine.
That's okay.
We still got some communications to go.
I love the stories that he was telling.
No, absolutely.
He's a true entrepreneur.
True entrepreneur, and he saw a potential, and scaling his business, giving the free time to be able to concentrate on other things, and I guess that's when he started focusing on this concept of apartment syndication.
One thing I love that he actually said in there was about his family, how he just didn't have the time to do it all and to really pay attention to what really matters in life. So that's a really cool story that he told, because that's a big thing of passively investing. That's the option that it gives us, is to be with our loved ones more often. Exactly.
And then getting back to what we were talking about earlier about the thought leadership platform, how the first time I ever got to meet you virtually, the concept of, so my background is in construction, development here in Vancouver, real estate, and the business is very cutthroat. It's very competitive. Nobody's sharing any secrets of the trade. When I started watching your show on YouTube, you literally were giving the blueprint of this concept of apartment syndication. And I fell in love with it. I spoke to Ava about it many times. And like she mentioned earlier, I was consumed by this whole concept. Obviously, the issue was now you're in the US. The concept has to work here in Canada. So I had to create a system where we could partner with Canadian investors to be able to invest in the US. But yeah, that was an incredible thing about your thought leadership platform. So if you like,
yeah, and we really wanted to tell us about this concept where you have this thought leadership platform and you give free content out to people.
Yeah. So my thing is that I get asked almost every single week, do you do coaching, or can you coach me, or can you be my mentor, things like that. And I really don't like coaching. Not that I don't like having a coach. Like, I have several coaches and mentors that I actually work with. I have 2 of them right now, one from the business side and one from the real estate side. But for me, being a coach and a consultant, I just don't have the personality for it, I guess, because I just really don't like it. And so I never really wanted to do a paid coaching program like that. There's plenty of them out there. Actually, as a matter of fact, because of COVID, there's been so many more that have come out. And so you have to be even more selective on who you find when it comes to actually hiring a consultant or a coach. But I was sitting down and I was trying to come up with a way for us to be able to expand in the multifamily space. And I think it was actually it was a podcast that I was listening to, a very popular one they call it the Entrepreneurs on Fire, and he has this Fire Nation, right? And so I was like, how could I play off of that nation type thing? And I came up with Multifamily Investor Nation. And just to be safe, I also registered Apartment Investor Nation, so somebody couldn't like knock it off with a different term or whatever. So I registered that as well, but decided to start to grow it with the meetup groups first. That's how I originally started, was with the meetup groups, and started to find co-organizers in the various cities. And, right now we have about, I think 54 now, a couple of groups in Canada now, but most of them are here in the States, getting ready to have one open up in the UK as well. And so that allowed me to be able to have the audience. And then we started the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit, which we have that coming up, which I know you're going to be at. We'll be having that next month, right, in January. But we're not doing that virtually just because of COVID. That's actually, we were the very first group that did a live virtual conference for multifamily. Everybody else was doing them in person. And so we decided to do it virtually to kind of be different and stand outside of the crowd a little bit. And we'll usually have between about 500 to 800 people, active investors that come to that event every single January and June. And so this is the 5th time that we've done it. And so that was another way for us to kind of get in front of everybody. And then we do the weekly webinars like you're talking about. And the weekly webinars were really kind of an outlet for me for the knowledge that I was gaining to be able to kind of teach it. Because the more you can teach something, the more you'll absolutely understand it and absorb it. And so I started doing those weekly webinars. And the purpose of the weekly webinars is actually as a lead generation tool for us at passiveinvesting.com. Because what we realized is that there's a lot of people that think that they want to be an active apartment investor, right? And so they're active out there, they're doing research, they're having knowledge, or they're trying to gain knowledge on how to do apartment syndication, how to be an apartment investor. And we can teach them that, right? I can teach them all the steps from A to Z on how to do it. But then a lot of times when they get into it, they're like, holy crap, this is a lot of work, right? I don't want to have to do all this stuff. And so they're like, here, Dan, you take my money, you do it. Right. So that's a great benefit. And then I also have a lot of people that are active that still come to the webinars that want to learn from us. Because we, like you said, we do open it up, right? We open up the whole book and say, hey, here's exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, the issues that come up, and the things that we think are important for you to focus on. And we share all that in those weekly webinars. And we have active investors now that have a self-directed retirement account. Like in the States, we have the IRA and the 401k that if they self-direct it, they can't invest it inside of their own property, but they can invest it in somebody else's property, right? And so I have a lot of well-known syndicators that actually come to us because of our thought leadership platform and our credibility, and they want to invest alongside us inside of our properties. And so they can now use their self-directed retirement accounts to invest alongside us. And so that's what allows us to kind of create that lead generation tool. And, just to give you some idea, right now on a low month, we use a software called Active Campaign to manage our leads that come in off of our website, our investor leads. And on a low month, we'll have between about maybe 80 or 90 new leads coming in every single month. On a good month, it'll be, or a really good month, it'll be like 170, 180. I actually just looked at it this morning, and in the last 30 days, we've had 105. So a lot of the results that we're achieving is from all of that efforts of, promoting and doing the podcast and the YouTube and the meetup and in the weekly webinars, like just kind of create that consistency to be able to create new leads that are coming in.
That's incredible. And it's sure paying off, because I have to say something. 2020 has been quite a year.
Yes.
But something I want to highlight, Dan Hanford, is you happen to literally close a $50 million asset smack in the middle of COVID.
I think it's more than 50. I think it was more than 50 right in the middle.
August and I were looking at each other being like, we'll get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah. And what you talked about building that thought leadership platform, about giving that free content, about being so trustworthy that even active investors come and partner with you, is times where you're doing a deal in the worst economic crisis and people still have trust in you to come on board and invest with your deal. So please, tell us a little bit more about that process and
how your investors trust you wholeheartedly and
to come on.
Yeah. So this year we actually closed a little over 165 million in assets, and two of them were large, $50 million deals. One was just under, it was a 49.955, but we can round up and say it's 50. Okay. But the other one was a $57.6 million deal. We also closed a 27 million and another $21.6 million deal as well. But the one that you're referring to that really kind of was the harder one for us was in the beginning of March of this year, 2020, we had locked up a really good, solid deal out of the Raleigh, North Carolina. Actually, no, this one was actually out of the Charlotte MSA. It was in the Lake Norman area of Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was a $49.95 million deal, and we were raising $19.4 million to acquire that one. Now, mind you, that was the largest raise we had ever had. So we had actually closed a $51.5 million deal prior to that in October of 2019. But this one, that was a $14 million raise. This one was because it was a different debt structure. This one was a $19.4 million raise. So we had a lot more equity that we had to raise on it. And then the moment we get it under contract, you guys know what happened in the latter part of March. The bottom fell out of the market, everything contracted, and it was just a really, I kind of call it a butt pucker moment, if you will, right? Because it's one of those situations where you get into it and you're like, I sure hope we can close this deal, right? I know it's still a really good deal, even given the market because of the dynamics of that particular deal. But normally that $14 million deal, the $14 million raise that we did to close that $51.5 million deal, we raised that $14 million in about 2 weeks. So, and then since that deal, we had brought in another 600 new investors into our fold. And so we were like, oh, this would be a walk in the park, probably another 2 weeks to be able to, fill it up. And no, it took a lot longer than 2 weeks. So we did a lot of update webinars for our investors that were interested in that project to make sure that they knew it was going to be a good, solid deal. And we were monitoring it too, because we didn't want to get into a deal if we felt like it wasn't going to be the right thing for us or for our investors. And so we were making sure we got collection report updates, like almost on a weekly basis. And we were updating the investors. We did a demographic study, very detailed, ourselves on site. We went on during our lease audit and shared all that information with the investors so that they knew the risks that might have been involved with the resident population. And we were able to finally raise all the money on the 59th day, and we closed it on the 60th day. Wow. So it was a 60-day close. But it was definitely a stressful time for sure.
But at some point, if I recall, you actually went back to the seller, and you guys even got a discount on the price as well, right?
We did.
Oh,
yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but it was a little over $1 million discount on the property.
Great. And we hope that property is doing great.
And congratulations on that. Yeah,
for
59th day. That's impressive.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah, why don't we talk about the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit?
Yeah, and this adds to, again, that thought leadership platform, and Dan giving out this free content. And I can't keep mentioning this item because it's so important to me, because it was something that really was something that changed my business, changed my career, trying to be involved in this concept of apartment syndication. It was because of Dan's thought leadership platform. Yeah. It was because of that free content he was giving out. So this Multifamily Investor Summit also is in line with that. So if you like to kind of go over the little highlights of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the price for this 3-day event is obviously incredibly low. And obviously you're not doing this event for monetary gains, but again, to help the investment community. And August and I are, obviously it's a dream come true for us to be the Canadians speaking on the event coming up here.
And believe it or not, see, when people in the US, apartment syndicators, sponsors like Dan have their thought leadership platform, the content gets spilled over the border. There's no borders when it comes to YouTube and other content, podcasts. A lot of Canadians are looking in the US. In the US, there is competition. There's many syndication teams that exist. But over here on this side, there are pretty much none. There's no other groups which offer this concept of apartment. They're bigger institutional investors that are deploying billions of dollars in the US, but you never hear of them. They don't even have websites. This concept exists, but is reserved for the top 1%. But this concept of apartment syndication allows for the everyday average retail investor to be able to invest in these large assets and invest like the top 1%. So,
and who knew, a year later after meeting Dan, we started a Canadian passive investing, and it enables Canadians to be able to invest in the incredible deals that the US have through our through our system that we created. So
Exactly.
Dan, you and I will have to talk about possibly, doing a deal together.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I know it's been exciting to kind of see you guys as you guys have transformed, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, August, but I think where you first heard about me was on LinkedIn, Twitter, wasn't it?
Yeah, so on Twitter, you don't have a big following on Twitter. So I'm one of the guys that likes and comments and retweets. I'm very active on Twitter. And then you made a comment on Twitter, and at that time I already knew about you. So then I messaged you back, and you're like, hey, let's get on a call. And that was incredible to me, because here, again, I don't want to keep saying negative things about Vancouver or Canada, but to be able to get on a call with a CEO of a company, especially somebody as busy as you, is unheard of. But you were right on, right on it. Said, hey, booked a time with me. We got on a call, got to meet each other. I'm like, hey, I'm liking this guy more and more. He's not only on YouTube and on podcasts, he seems like such a genuine guy, but also he got on a call with me right away, pursued options of us potentially collaborating.
And then Dan started talking about the numbers, and the numbers here don't make sense in Canada. And we're like, how can we do this for Canadians? And a year later, here we are.
Exactly.
We're making it possible for everybody to win. So
exactly, yeah, we can't wait for the summit. So that if you could give us, again, this is a great thing, because you, as you mentioned, you started your real estate investment career for tax saving reasons, but you were also a passive investor prior to becoming an active investor. Am I right?
That's correct. Yeah. So when I first got started in the space, I decided I wanted to passively invest first, trying to kind of get my feet wet and kind of walk the walk, if you will, right? So, and actually some of the numbers that are in that bio were a little bit outdated. I'm actually up to about 32, right at 32 passive investments right now, with multiple syndications with 9 different operators across the country. Most of my portfolio is either in Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and then in the Carolinas.
Great.
Wow.
Wonderful. Yeah. And that would be my advice as well to passive investors, to even if you want to be active, is to invest in one of these syndications passively, and then you will be provided with a blueprint of how the process is done, and then you can make your own adjustments. And as Dan mentioned, he's invested in multiple ones. Yeah. So if you had an advice for a passive investor, even more generally for a real estate investor, what would that advice be, Dan?
Well, it depends. So it depends on if you want to go active or if you want to go passive, right? If you're trying to go passive, one of the questions I always get all the time is, how do you know who's the right person to invest in, right? Because there's so many different operators out there. I've been in the space long enough that I see people come and I see people go, and you're like, where'd this person go? They closed on one property and then they're no longer doing it anymore, right? And so you have to make sure that you pick the right operator to invest with. And so I actually, because my wife and I invest passively with other groups, we sat down and we actually came up with like 7 red flags for people who want to invest passively in apartments. And I can provide that to you guys if you want, and after the show or whatever, or if you're those of you who are watching live, if you want to message me on LinkedIn, just go to my LinkedIn and message me. I'll be glad to share with you that file. So you can actually see those 7 red flags, because I think it's important, because I've seen some people get not necessarily crazily burned, but I've seen people that have made the wrong decision on who to invest with, and it will come back to bite you eventually, right? Might not be right away, might not be tomorrow, but eventually it does come back to bite you. And I've done that once before, where I didn't lose money, but I know I'm not going to be able to get the return that I was originally projected. And if I would have chosen my syndicator more wisely, then it would have been a lot easier for me to be able to do that as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Exactly. And it's all about options. As an investor, it's all about diversify.
Yeah,
it's about having options to, and this concept of real estate here in Vancouver, real estate gets really expensive, and it's difficult for certain people to invest into real estate. At times there might already be invested and they still have a certain amount of equity they're looking to deploy. And this apartment syndication is the only process where you hold the feet of the sponsor to fire to make sure that the project makes sense and is profitable. And it's as the sponsor only gets paid from the portion of the profits that the deal is making. So we all that's another thing. We fell in love with the process as well.
So really cool. Any Canadian investors that want to invest in the Dan Hanford incredible deals with great returns, you give us a call, and we have the system set up to avoid double taxation and all the red tape, because there's a lot of red tape.
Absolutely. And if you're currently involved in investing in the US, if you have an entity, an LLC in the US, the process is a lot easier to be able to directly invest with Dan, that's an option as well. But there's some tax complications and what have you that we're going to have many webinars on. But yeah, I posted also Dan's LinkedIn page, so get in touch with him, watch his videos, watch his podcast.
And one more time, Dan, we're going to post our promo code for the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit that's coming up. So maybe just quickly on a high level, tell people what the summit's about and what they can expect.
Sure. So the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit, which is coming up on January 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of 2021. So lots of big mouthful there, a lot of 20s in there. That event is where it's really kind of the mecca, if you will, of multifamily. So just about anybody who's anything in multifamily is invited to that event. And I have them speaking on, how to raise capital, how to find investors, how to, find deals, how to work with brokers, how to manage your assets, the market outlook for 2021, which is going to be a big thing. We always do a market update at the beginning of the year. And then we have another event that we'll always do, which is the mid-year Multifamily Investor Nation Summit in June. And that'll usually be our mid-year update, but we'll have the very first pretty much update and for the outlook of 2021 at the event there. And then it's also a good place to network with fellow investors. So maybe you're an active, a syndicator and you're trying to find investors or want to partner with some people. It's a great place to be able to network. We have a lot of opportunities for networking, even though it's virtual. It's not the same as live. I will tell you, I will admit to that, but we also don't charge as much as a live event either. So it's a great event and various opportunities to be able to network with other people virtually, to be able to find other passive partners for some of your projects, but also to be able to find other partners to maybe, acquire properties with into the future.
Amazing.
Exactly.
And we'll send our promo code to everyone that joined us today. And we're going to be posting it all over LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, and we have been, and we're going to continue doing that. So,
and we can't wait to see you there, Dan.
Yeah, we can't wait to see you there. It was great having our unsolicited mentor on our show. It was a long time coming, so we really feel honored and privileged to have you on. And we'd love for you to come on again at some point and possibly chat about a next deal that you were planning to close and or a deal that you're looking to close.
Yeah, definitely. It's really incredible, the empire you've built. So we're right behind you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate both of you having me on. It's great to kind of see you guys grow. You've done a lot over the last year. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next 12 months does for you as well.
Absolutely. Awesome, okay, then. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.